Brought to you by Friends, Counsel, and Agnes. Trustee U, your online governance program for trustees.
The number one legal issue for schools these days is really all about student safety. After Penn State, we've heard so many stories coming from schools. They're either worried about things that might have happened before or worried about how to prevent them. And really starting to look holistically at students. So looking at their physical safety, they're doing safety audits and a lot more staff trainings and really talking about these issues, but then also looking at students' well-being, making sure that when students graduate, they have the resources to really, come out as whole people. They're ready for college, they're ready for the challenges that's going to present. But again, this student safety is really, it's been key. We've gotten so many calls about it, and we've put up a lot of resources on the website because of it. And I think we'll keep seeing that, over the next year to 2 years. Stories, when you have a big story like Penn State, older stories tend to come out. But I think what's been very encouraging is the schools have been, they take those old reports or old cases, and they're being very transparent and very straightforward with their communities and really trying to do the right thing. So, when schools are wrestling, with these student safety issues, particularly in the areas of sexual abuse, because that's certainly the biggest issue we're seeing right now after Penn State. You have schools that might be wrestling with a current issue. They've got a sort of a current suspicion of something. They're being pretty aggressive. They're, contacting their attorneys. They're talking with their board. A lot of times their board chair, their executive committee. And really going through the investigation steps. And we've got resources on this on the NEIS website. We have a general student safety handbook, but then we also have ones on sort of dealing with the crisis and steps of crisis when you have an accusation of student sexual abuse. And then we also have schools that are dealing with older cases. So, a student from, say, 10, 15 years ago comes forward and says, I was abused within the school. And they're very complicated for schools to deal with because a lot of times it's a totally different administration. Sometimes nobody is left on staff who has any recollection. And those schools are being, I think they're being very forthright most of the time. They're, really saying, we want to work with you, we want to help figure this out, and they're still getting in touch with their attorney and also reaching out to old staff and looking through the files and trying to figure out really what happened. And we have resources on that topic as well. And then for schools that aren't really wrestling with either a current issue or an older issue, and they're just sort of saying, how can we look at the procedures and policies we have in place? They're doing a total review, and really the most important thing is to really get a staff training in place, particularly for bigger schools. It's easier for this staff training to not be done necessarily every year because there's so much ground to cover on the policy and procedure front. But schools are really looking at those policies and procedures and saying, okay, what are the norms? What are the cultural norms that we expect? Are they very clear to all of our staff? Are they very clear to all of our parents? Because creating those norms helps you figure out when somebody is, basically a deviant working outside those norms. And again, we have resources for those too on the NEIS website. So those are some of the steps we're seeing schools take on this front.